New World is set for a very important next 6 months, and I think these 6 months will actually decide the future of the game in total. I've often said that you will get a second chance, but most people will not give you a third chance. And New World's big second chance is coming this year within the next 6 months. And one MMO that absolutely smashed its second chance is today's sponsor, Final Fantasy XIV. Final Fantasy XIV is the multi-award winning MMO, and if you haven't already given it a try, now is the perfect time. The free trial has actually been expanded and new players can now venture all the way to level 60 with no restrictions on playtime. So this means you can take your time, go at your own pace, all the while playing for free. Gameplay wise, Final Fantasy XIV has it all: raiding, transmog, housing, crafting, PvP, and much more. In the free trial, there's 14 exciting jobs to choose from, and what's more, you can actually play all of these jobs on the same character. So if you are a fan of trying everything on the one character, then Final Fantasy XIV has you covered. The Final Fantasy series of games are well known for their amazing stories, and Final Fantasy XIV is one of the greatest Final Fantasy stories ever told. You can, and you certainly should, check out the link in the description below to get access to the free trial. Okay, back to New World. Now I know some of you out there might say that New World has actually already had its second chance with Brimstone and the Fresh Start servers, and I personally don't quite buy that. The hype wasn't really high enough, it wasn't really the right moment. For some people it probably does count as a second chance, but I would actually say the people who came back at that moment are the kind of people who likely will actually give it a third chance. They're a bit more interested than the average player, but most of the millions who played at launch, they've not yet given the game a second chance. Most people didn't come back and try it again. And I really think that some people underestimate the impact that an expansion can and possibly will have on New World. Some people wrongly call Brimstone Sands an expansion, and that's not true. It was a map expansion, sure, but if you actually listen to the developers, I think Katie said that this expansion that's coming this year is the first time that they used that phrase. And I think that they are aware of the connotations that come along with that and the pressures that they need to deliver on. So don't underestimate how big of an impact an expansion can have, and how that will actually give most players the second chance for New World. But even before we get to the proper expansion, we have a very important time coming up in the next month or two. The Season 2 patch in July, I think, is actually one of the biggest moments for the game so far as well. And that's for one main reason, and that is raids. Raids have the potential to really change the end game, to really fill it out. Don't get me wrong, raids are not going to be the solution to all of New World's problems. That's obviously not realistic. Far, far from it. But it does expand the game and it expands the end game. I am really curious to what the rewards will be. They keep saying that it's actually going to be the most challenging content, but they also say that the rewards will be very good. It's a little bit weird to have good rewards when a lot of people already have decent 625 gear, so I'm very curious what the progression is there. What is the reward? We'll find out soon, I hope. But the main thing that raids could sort of influence, but they're not going to fix, I think, is the New World progression system, which, quite frankly, I think is bloated and not very enjoyable. First, you need to hit level 60. Then you need to get your expertise up from 500 to 600. Then you need to get good gear to maybe 590, so then you can use Umbral Shards to upgrade it. Then if you want to do PvE, you need to have Ward gear, but you don't necessarily need Ward gear for the early mutations. But at some point, if you are going to want to do the high level mutations, you are going to need Ward gear. If you then need Ward gear, you need 5 sets of Ward gear. Then you probably need to buy some of the gear storage, because how are you going to manage all of these gear sets? Then you spend your shards to get up to 625, so you can get more shards from doing the M10s, but then actually you're just spending shards to get shards. It's all a little bit convoluted, and I really don't think it's an enjoyable experience for most players. If you enjoy it, fair enough. And the raid isn't going to fix that yet. But the devs have said that in the New World expansion, we are getting a major gear rework as well as a gear score increase. So it's my hope that maybe they'll utilize raids and they'll actually have some kind of sensible progression. It doesn't have to be the old school sort of MMO. It doesn't have to be like dungeons and raids, etc. It can be something in between, and it can have offshoots and stuff like that. But I think you need to give the players a sort of clear path. At the minute, the path to good gear is basically obscured by an obscene amount of RNG. Although the patterns are sort of diminishing that a little bit, but still. Now, I'm not saying you have to get away with all of the RNG. No, I don't think that's the case. You can still have a little bit of RNG, but you have to make the path through that RNG very obvious, and I don't think New World has that at all. And the raids could help with that. But along with the raids coming out in July, I'm also expecting a trailer for the new expansion to drop possibly in June. I think it's actually going to come at the Summer Games Fest. Jeff Keighley and AGS seem to have like a decent relationship. In the past, they've revealed trailers at Jeff's events, so it would make sense. But obviously, nothing is confirmed at this point. I don't know when we'll get a trailer. But if you are releasing an expansion within about 6 months' time, I think it's getting very close to when you would actually drop your first trailer. So I think that will come sooner rather than later. And if it's not, then I think I'm going to go apply the marketing team at AGS. I'm just kidding, I have nothing about marketing. But with the trailer, we will get our hype cycle back. And I think we've seen that hype is often more important than reality. That's probably why Ashes of Creation is so popular, even though it's many years from release. I've often said before that many people are interested in a game that they might play. A lot less people are interested in a game that they've tried and didn't like. But we saw with Brimstone, effectively the hype of Brimstone brought people back. And then they played Brimstone and then they left. So the hype is very important, and New World will need to bring back that hype in a big way. Because in general, I think there's a lot more competition than there was when New World first launched. For example, just when I think we're going to get our first turning point with this trailer and raids, we're going to have some big competition from other games like Diablo 4, Final Fantasy 16 and so on. Huge games that I'm sure will be very good and do very well. And then after this, if we look at the launch window when the expansion might drop, we're going to have games like Throne of Liberty, Blue Protocol, and probably more that I can't think of right now. Now with those specific games, AGS are actually in a position to possibly influence the release windows because they publish them. But either way, the windows are narrowing when it comes to both the launch of the trailer and the actual launch of the expansion. And I really think that New World needs to have something quite clear in the trailer that will actually give us hype and fight against that competition that they're inevitably going to have. And before we get to that, we'll have raids, and then we'll have the trailer, and that will begin that cycle of hype. Then we need the expansion to actually deliver on that hype, and that's going to be very crucial for the future of New World going forward. It needs to bring some interesting new stuff, as well as fixing some of the major issues that the game actually has, like the gearing system, for example. If it succeeds, then New World's future will be very bright and everybody will be happy. If we just get more of the same, then I think that New World may very quickly become overshadowed. Either way, for me personally, the next 6 months are very, very important to what I do with New World and the future of my channels and stuff like that. Sure, I have my Throne of Liberty channel, which is currently called Jay Evenly. I'll leave a link in the description. But I have no idea if that game's going to be good or bad. But I tell you what I really need to see, some positive changes when it comes to New World. Honestly, I think that the promise of the game, its potential, is actually carrying it on some level. It feels like there's so much potential, and they don't necessarily even have to utilize all of that potential for New World to be great. We just need a little bit more. And then I think it can be a truly great game. I really hope that they use the expansion as an excuse to change some of the systems in radical ways. As I said, people will often give you a second chance, but that third chance, that'll be less forthcoming. So we're getting very close to, I think, the pivotal time in New World's history, basically. We're going to be having a hype for a new expansion trailer. We're going to be getting raids, and then that expansion is actually going to drop, and that's the chance to really change things. It could be huge in the MMO community if they do it right, but if we just get more of the same and they're not really willing to change many of the major things, then I think we'll get the same result. If we end up with more of the same, we're going to see more of the same when it comes to play numbers. If we get actual significant changes, then we may start seeing some significant changes in the player numbers. And I think the game has so much potential, I really hope they can succeed. I'm excited and a little bit nervous to see what they are going to be bringing us, because I'm pretty sure it's not what's just on the roadmap, because that would be pretty sad times. Otherwise we're in big trouble. However, we'll see what we get when we get a trailer, when we start getting interviews with websites and stuff like that. More information will be coming out about New World in the next 6 months, and I've got to tell you, I am very, very excited. I'm definitely here for it. And hopefully I'll be here for it in 2.5 years' time when we get the next one. At the minute, I don't see anything that would stop me, but as I said, I do need to see some big changes. There's no way we can know right now. Let's see what we actually get. Big shout out to my YouTube members, and if you want to support me for free, then come and give me a follow over on Twitch. What you should definitely do though is have a most beautiful day, like and subscribe. Goodbye.